This week on Maker Update, building a better bird, a lamp to help you sleep, a box full of spooky sounds, and 7 tips for better combat bots. Hello and welcome back to Maker Update, the show where we scour the whole internet to find all the wonderful projects that makers are making. I'm Tyler Weingarner and I hope you're all doing great, staying inspired, and working on cool projects. We've got a pretty big show for you, so let's get it going with the project of the week. Building a machine that flies is no easy feat. Building a machine that flies that also disregards all the traditional designs of flying machines is another challenge altogether. Which is what makes this mechanical bird created by Works by Design so special. And we get to see the whole journey unfold here. If this project sounds a little familiar, it's because we covered his first version of the project a little while back. While that version was similarly impressive, he only considered it a partial success because it was only able to achieve flight with the help of these air pressure thrusters instead of relying entirely on the flapping of its wings. He's looking to correct that this time around, but with a similar set of goals. All mechanical design and no electronics. Powering the ornithopter is a small CO2 cartridge, and he's using a dual piston engine to turn the gas pressure into rotational motion. Usually this type of cylinder arrangement depends on the momentum of a flywheel to prevent it from backfiring. But in this case, he's able to use a cam profile to make sure it's venting the excess gas at just the right moment of the stroke to prevent that. To give the final drive shaft a little bit of flex and hopefully prevent some wear and tear on the rest of the parts, he's developed this dual material gear. PLA on either end, but connected through a column of TPU. Just enough to give it a little bit of flex. Because the internal pressure of a CO2 cartridge is around 850 psi, he also needs a powerful but lightweight regulator to make sure that pressure is more manageable and sustain flight for a longer period. When it came time for its first independent flight, it didn't fly. The wings only create about 40 grams of thrust, and the bird weighs closer to 250. So it clearly needs some more powerful wings and some weight savings, which I assume will come in a future video. But it really is true that it's the journey, not the destination. And there's still a ton of creative engineering to get things to this point. And he's got enough dedication to this project to see it over the finish line. So stay tuned. More projects. Generally speaking, people find the sound of rainfall to be extremely calming, and it helps them sleep more soundly. The problem is you can't control the weather. Sure, you can call up sounds like rainfall on white noise apps on your phone, but there's something special about the sound of actual rainfall. Which is why Lang DIY created this raining terrarium lamp. In the base, there's a water pump surrounded by some crushed lava rock. The plants are all grown in a slurry of cocoa peat and fertilizer, which is pressed into these pieces of drain cell crate, which are then glued to the sides of the jar. With the plants pressed in, one of the last things to do is to make the rain shower head from a plastic cup. It looks gorgeous, and it sounds even better. Becky Stern has a new video out on how she made these glowing LED mushrooms for a bartending competition that her friend was participating in. She took an existing 3D printed design from printables and modified it to house the LED circuit. This is a fairly simple circuit, but there's still plenty of meat here, like how you can do without resistors on a circuit like this because you get plenty of resistance from the CR2032 battery, and how to print multiple tests to make sure you get just the right fit between the cap and the stem. There's a lot to be learned by recreating mass-produced objects using the tools that you have. In this video by Stuart, Ferguson is using 3D printing to create a torque arm for his workbench to make it easier to drill holes using his Dremel. He went through several iterations of the base design until he came up with one that could easily support the weight of the cantilevered arm. There's a ton of great tips in here, like using these inserts between the halves of the print to add strength since they're printed in a different orientation. And don't sleep on all the knowledge of using different types of bearings for the ideal rigidity and smoothness of motion. And from the Crafsman Steady Craftin channel, we have a fun guide on how to make a box designed solely to create spooky sound effects for horror films. Strange sounds that can be used to ramp up the tension of any scene, even one from Air Bud. Just like last week's robot safety cabinet, this is a bit of excising the junk drawer. Springs, bits of rusted metal, and an old cocktail strainer. The secret sauce here is the wooden box that allows these objects to resonate, and the piezo contact microphones that can be used to amplify the sound. Great stuff. Time for some tips and tools for Adafruit. Aaron St. Blaine takes you on a video tour through Lady Ada's Toolkit, which is a curated collection of tools to help you get started in electronics work. Included in the kit is a 60-watt soldering iron with temperature control and a stand, a multimeter, some flush cutters, wire strippers, a PCB holder, and the parts kit, which sets you up with your first solderless breadboard, some LEDs, transistors, tactile switches, and a resistor kit. The toolkit is available from Adafruit for $100, and it's a great place to get started. Josh Makeshift has been building an entire ecosystem for extending Ikea furniture pieces into creating your own custom designs. This journey began with an earlier video where he created a number of designs for Ikea cabinet doors. This is an adaptation of that to create a system of uprights and beams based on the Skadis pegboard system, which already has a number of 3D printable designs. He's also building all the parts in OpenSCAD, which gives you the ability to customize the parts for what you need. Cut Transform Glue has a collection of great tips on making sci-fi props from old pens. A lot of this is taking them apart, cleaning them up, and harvesting the greeblies hidden within, but there's also just a ton of great tips on working with cylindrical objects, how to make perpendicular cuts in them, marking them to add the greeblies, sanding them flush, and more. He also reaches into the toolkit of a resin 3D printer to create some custom pieces, and they look amazing. Angus from Maker's Muse has a collection of 7 tips for building 3D printable ant-weight combat robots. These are his combat-proven tips for making bots in this exciting weight class. Using infill instead of pockets to add lightness, adding a little bit more clearance than you think you need, and using reference CAD models to design your bot. But maybe the spiciest tip? Don't use heat-set threaded inserts. Check out the video to hear why and what his alternatives are. For this week's DigiKey Spotlight, we have a video about isolated power supplies from their Another Teaching Moment series. What makes an isolated power supply? It's a feature that protects the circuit from electrical noise and electromagnetic interference, and the primary factor is the design of the input transformer. Learn about how the different ways in which the transformer is grounded affects the isolation of the transformer. This video also gives a brief overview of the isolation standards currently in use. Alright, and that is going to do it for this week's show. I hope you enjoyed it. A reminder, as always, that you can get more info about every single one of these projects by following the links down in the description. While you're there, leave us a comment, give us a thumbs up, and hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one. As always, huge thanks to DigiKey for making this show possible and to you for watching. Take care. We'll see you soon.